Uh, Sorry, colleagues, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Oh,
Lawrence,
you
we
back?
can now hear you.
Okay, I just started the
Okay,
recording, Lawrence,
perfect.
so you can just proceed.
Yes, perfect. Apologies. Okay, perfect. Apologies for that. Apologies, I just had some connectivity issues. Internet sometimes can be a problem. So I'd like to start off by thanking all the attendees for taking the time to join this session, and most importantly, our facilitator, Dr. Gabriel Monera, for taking your time and for honoring my invite to be the facilitator of this topic, thesis format and submission procedure. Before I introduce Dr. Gabriel to you or read over his bio, I would like to go over a few housekeeping rules. Please kindly note that this session is being recorded, as I have stated. And if you do have any question during this session, please kindly raise your virtual hand, or you can type in the question in the chat box, and we will attend and I will present your question to the facilitator. And as I've mentioned, that this session is being recorded, and the presentation slides will be requested from Dr. Gabriel, together with the recording of this session, and we will post it on our Moro communities for everyone's access. And also, please kindly note that I will be posting a feedback survey in the chat session during now at the beginning of the session, probably midway session, as well as the end of the session, so that you can also rate the session so that we know where and how we can improve in the future. And also, you can also suggest to us what topics you as postgraduate students would like us to facilitate or to organize workshop on, and we will be able to do that. And also, please also to provide some kind words to our facilitator, as we also use this feedback survey for our reporting purposes. Okay, before I begin the session, please kindly allow me to read over Dr. Gabriel Monera's bio. Dr. Gabriel Monera holds a PhD in Economic and Management Sciences with International Trade from Northwest University, and is currently enrolled in the postgraduate diploma in research supervision at the University of Johannesburg. With over a decade of teaching experience and a strong publication record, he has authored and co-authored book chapters and a number of articles in top-tier accredited peer-reviewed journals. He actively reviews for reputable journals and received multiple awards for academic excellence. Dr. Monera completed his postdoctoral research fellow at the UJ and currently serves as a research capacity development specialist at the University of Johannesburg Postgraduate School, supporting postgraduate students and researchers in academic writing and publication. His research interests include trade policy, export promotion, globalization, foreign direct investment, regional integration in Africa, market accessibility, measurement, and 4IR trade-related research. Without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to you, Dr. Gabriel. You may proceed, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for the introduction. And I just want an expression to show that you can hear me from yourself as well as from the participants. Yes, I can see some virtual thumbs from the participants. Thank you for that indication. Allow me to share my slides with you. And upon sharing the screen, kindly confirm if you can see these slides that I'm sharing with you.
Yes, Dr. Gabriel, I can see your slides and they are in presenter mode. Can we all indicate with a thumbs up if we can see Dr. Gabriel's slides? The thumbs up. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that indication. So, like Lawrence has already said, today we are looking at a very important topic that also defines, the progression as well as the conclusion of the degree programs that we'll be doing here at the University of Johannesburg under the College of Business and Economics, within the masters as well as the the doctoral, sort of fraternity. So I will look at just a bit of introduction into what does it mean when we say a thesis, when we say a dissertation, Sometimes, you know, they are used interchangeably because in other geographical locations, they use thesis to refer to master students, whilst in others, they use thesis to refer to doctoral students, where the opposite is also equally true, where you find dissertation being used for doctoral students and you know, in other parts being used for masters students. So we just give a little bit of clarity as to what does it mean, and also in terms of the regulations, in terms of the policies that we have here at the University of Johannesburg that governs our conduct, that governs, you know, the way in which, you know, we conduct, be it ourselves and as well as the research that we will be doing as postgraduate masters and doctoral students. So I will also look at the thesis formatting and structure, the thesis submission procedure, special cases and academic regulations. Then, you know, what I've just termed as the final lap, which are sort of, you know, those concluding activities that are undertaken, you know, before you wrap up the whole degree program, and maybe sometimes leave the university, or sometimes, you know, be integrated into the university as part of the working staff. Then just, you know, after that, we'll just get maybe a bit of a testimony from one of the recent graduates here within the Research Capacity Development Unit, Mr. Lawrence Asani, to just share with us his experience, you know, within the context of some of the things and the conversation that we are going to have here today. Then from there, I can now open the floor for, you know, sort of an open discussion where we can also share our experiences as well, you know, for those who have graduated before, we have undergone these processes before. So we will also be able to share our experiences, contribute to the conversation that would be have had, and, you know, offer insights to other fellow students as well as to our colleagues as well. Okay, so let's just sort of build an understanding, you know, of what do we mean when we say theses and dissertations. Like I've already alluded to, that some of these terms, they are in certain parts, you know, of the world, they are used sort of interchangeably, but within, you know, the context, in South African context, we normally use thesis for referring to sort of an extensive research project that is submitted by doctoral students in partial fulfillment of the requirements of their you know, of their degrees. Then we also use the term, you know, like I've been saying, that these are normally used sort of interchangeably, but the dissertation refers to the you know, that you know, research component of the master's you know, program, where when you are doing masters, it also depends, you know, we have other sort of titles that we give that, you know, research report, mini dissertation, and so on, that we'll look at as we proceed further. So you'll see that usually a dissertation, it's shorter, and the primary interest is for demonstration of understanding of the subject, you know. Then on the doctoral side, there is a need for an original contribution and also a critical engagement with theory and the methodology. So if you bring it to the context of the policy documents that we have here, you know, we'll talk about those documents as we progress. In terms of the academic regulations, it's actually defined. This is defined as a collection of articles or essays prepared for assessment purposes, which represents a distinct original contribution to the knowledge and insight into a field of study, either by disclosure of new facts or by the exercise of an independent and critical ability in full compliance with the requirements of a sort of the doctorate, you know, within the context of the University of Johannesburg. So these are just some, you know, common formats that we have on thesis. We have what is called a monograph, which is the traditional form of thesis that we normally write. When I talk about this as well, refer to dissertations as well, because when you are doing masters by research, then you write a full dissertation. Then when you are doing a master's by coursework, a coursework master's, then you have a research report or you have a mini dissertation. So which sort of differ also even in terms of the length of that particular document. So the monograph, this is simply the traditional form of full master's by research, as well as when you are writing, a doctoral thesis. So which is a single cohesive document with chapters forming a comprehensive narrative. So we'll discuss more, even more about this as we go, but we'll also introduce as well, because masters is also done by articles. Then we also do PhD by articles as well. So that one, we call it the article or publication style, where a collection of peer-reviewed articles with an overarching introduction and conclusion are actually prepared, and they have to be, before you graduate or before the degree is conferred upon you, they have to be, some of them have to be published. So the requirements differ for doctoral and also for masters. For masters, we'll talk about it as we also progress in. But how do you choose the right format? How do you choose whether to do a monograph or to do an article based publication? I see a hand from Santos. You can unmute yourself. I've allowed your mic. Unmute yourself and ask your question. Santos, can you hear me?
Yes.
You can, yes, unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
No, thank you very much. I just wanted to raise that we could not hear you, but now I can. I don't know why it wasn't possible. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you for indicating. All right. Let me then proceed. So the how do you choose the right format? So usually it's based on disciplinary norms. For CBE, we do a mixture of both. I've seen others doing the full, sort of masters by research, doctoral by research as well. Whilst others also, take the article route. So it's just based sometimes on disciplines. Also, the supervisor, the guidance from the supervisor as well as the dissemination goals, both the research dissemination goals for yourself, your supervisor, and the institutional alignment as well. Because remember, research, the university, sort of the research component is a very important arm of the university. So where those rankings, global rankings and so on, they are dependent on the research that is that the university undertakes, and also even the grants that the university gets as well. It's also dependent on the research component as well. So the university also can drive, push towards articles by publication, because that also sort of drives the research component of the university. So that is a choice that you also make yourself as a student, and in liaison with your supervisor for guidance, as well as in recognition of the research dissemination goals, as well as the institutional alignment. Then we have these policies. These are policies. Everything that I'm going to talk about here, it conforms to these policies. These are the policies that I've used when I was compiling this sort of presentation and this engagement with you. So that we have the UJ higher degrees policy, which is a document. I'm thinking by now you should be having some of these documents, because they even spell out from the time that you apply until when you leave the university, what are the processes, what happens in terms of your progression, the phases of writing, and all those other components, it also sets out even frameworks of what happens in terms of supervision and so on. So I'm thinking that you are already sort of accustomed to this document. I've provided links at the end, as references where you can access these documents if you need to read further. It's important that you know, because these are the documents that spell out everything in detail of what happens during the course of your study, until the degree is conferred upon you and you officially leave the university. So the higher degrees policy sort of provides the overall framework governing postgraduate qualifications, including the master's and doctoral degrees at the University of Johannesburg. It outlines expectations regarding the quality of the academic research that you'll be doing, supervisory responsibilities, admission requirements, qualification types, progress monitoring, submission standards, and also your ethical conduct, as a researcher. So this is one of the documents that is very, very significant in ensuring the consistency and quality in the research that we do across all the faculties. So besides the faculty also, having its own sort of influence and within this whole process, the writing as well as the submission process. Yes. Lawrence, can you disable mic, sir?
Okay, apologies for that.
All right, thank you.
I've disabled my mic.
All right. So it's so like I've been saying that it is actually sort of a cornerstone document that ensures that there is consistency and quality in the research that we do as postgraduate students, as well as staff as well, across all the faculties of the university. So the faculty also have its own sort of guidelines, its own processes as well. But everything that it does, it must also have been approved by the higher degree committee as well as by the Senate. So which means it conforms to these three policies that I'm talking about here. So then we also have, besides the higher degrees policy, we have the higher degrees administration policy, which deals with the procedural and administrative management of all higher degrees. It includes the application process, registration timelines, record keeping responsibilities, supervisor appointment protocols, milestone tracking, and other issues that sort of speaks to everything, including your readiness as a student for graduation upon the final leg of your studies. So it's sort of a complementary document to the higher degrees policy by sort of operationalizing it within the academic and administrative systems of the university as a whole. Then we have the academic regulations that must also be read, in conjunction with the faculty and Senate approved rules. Like I've been saying, that the faculty as well, the faculty higher degree committee, in conjunction with the Senate, they can some rules, faculty specific rules, can also be approved that you have to follow as a student. So the academic regulations, it simply contain specific rules and procedures that are endorsed both by the Senate and the faculty board. They cover critical aspects, such as the minimum and maximum duration of study, rules for conversion from master's to doctoral degrees, submission deadlines, language of the thesis, including issues of formatting requirements, plagiarism, appeals if something goes wrong, the process that you take when you're appealing, including the degree conferral criteria itself. So, like I've said, that each faculty may also have additional rules that supplement the overarching regulations of the University of Johannesburg to accommodate some, remember, discipline, we cannot really cover all its aspects. There are other aspects that are subtle that might also be possibly specific to that particular faculty, so that are addressed within the academic regulations. Then we, from there, let's talk a bit about the scope of doctoral degrees, also the master's degree types. So within the doctoral degrees, it's actually, the requirement is that this is sort of a self-directed advanced research. So as a PhD student, discipline is one of the very important factors that determines the success of the your degree program that you are doing. So your success largely hinged on your discipline as a doctoral candidate. So there's no that sort of always that hands-on sort of that kind of supervision where every time you have to be told what to do, how to do it, and so on. So you have to take the lead yourself as the researcher. So it's even much better if you start from the conceptualization of the study yourself. Then the supervisor is there to just guide as an expert, but the work is done by you, including whether you finish or you do not finish that. So now that hinge on your discipline as a student. Then it's very important that within the doctoral degree you make a significant and original contribution to the field, so that what sort of earns you that title of being called a doctor. So you must have done something. You must have make a significant, a meaningful contribution to the field. So which is a very important component that is checked and determines whether you are that degree is conferred upon you or not. Then within the master's fraternity, these are the degree types that we have according to the UJ academic regulations of 2024. So we have the research master's degree where within this the sole requirement is the dissertation, right? The sole requirement for that, it is the dissertation. So you have to write sort of a full dissertation. But we also have the coursework master's program, where it includes coursework and a minor dissertation. So usually it's 90 to 180, credits. That research component must sort of constitute that part. So that these are some of the information that you can also seek if you do not understand it in terms of the credits of your degree, for you to have finished the credits of your degrees. Usually 180, but you can seek for that information from the faculty officer of CBE. So the research component should be 90 over the total credits, almost sort of half of the credits that you are required for the degree to be conferred upon you. So for when you are doing the masters by coursework, the successful completion, it is sort of a compulsory, so all the taught modules that constitute a part of the requirements of the graduation, you have to sort of be able to complete all that, including the minor dissertation or other forms of research that you'll be doing, contributing, in terms of the UJ. In terms of the UJ academic regulation, that must constitute at least 60 credits of what you'll be doing. If it's NKF level 9, then it have to be constituting at least 60 credits towards the total credits, right? So I think if you want this information, you can refer to section 2.3.25 of the UJ academic regulations of 2024. Then within the master's, the research one, the successful completion of a research dissertation, like I've already mentioned, that's the sole academic requirement for graduation, right? So, you can read all about this, professional master's program degree. What does it mean when we say dissertation as well, minor dissertation, issues of research report. So you can read further that, from the from the UG academic regulations of 2024, section 2.3.25. So that contains all that information. For if you want further clarity on what it means when we say dissertation, minor dissertation, research report, and for minor dissertation, just for interest, you are writing a document more limited in scope and length than a full research master's dissertation. So the document itself should communicate the work produced in the course of the project, and usually its content and outcome provide evidence that you yourself as a candidate, you are conversant with the method of research, sort of in partial compliance with the requirements for the prescribed outcome of that of the coursework material for the whole master's program. So I don't know this, how it is designed, if you are doing masters by coursework, how your department have sort of designed this particular program. I see a hand from Trelet or Marcelo. Trelet, I've allowed your mic. You can ask your question.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, what would be the considerations that one would have to consider in deciding on a coursework master's or a research master's?
Okay, so one of the things that are sort of apparent is the brevity of the study that you'll be doing. So sort of the length of the study itself, and also just I'm thinking this is more of a personal sort of a personal choice that one has to make depending on your capabilities as a student. Whether, because remember the coursework masters have modules, have assignments and so on. I didn't want it because I didn't want to continue to do assignments and other stuff. So that's one thing that motivated me to move to I did a sort of a full dissertation, a master's by research when I was doing my master's. But one of the motivation was that I was just tired of writing assignments and being told that there's a test, there's this, there's that. So I chose to do a full research for my program to have a full chose a program with a full research component, right? But that is it is your choice that you make, and also sometimes depending on the degree that you are doing, on that program that you are doing. So some programs are just a full master's by research, and some they do have a coursework component. Whilst maybe they can also have a coursework component and also research masters by coursework, or you have a masters by research. Okay, I see another hand.
Right. Honest, you can go ahead.
Oh. Yes, sorry. I just wanted to clarify on your statement to the lady that was asking about how do you know, or when should you, how do you know whether you should choose a coursework or a research-based master's course? That depends actually, just to add on to that, sorry, that actually depends on the requirements. So if you didn't have background in that particular master's, then you would be required to then do coursework if you don't have background. And then others, it just comes as it is. You have to do coursework. And then others, it is just research. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you so much for that contribution. So I think,
Doc,
yes. Can you hear me?
there is another sort of like question in the chat. It says, for a career in academia, would a full research one not be better given future supervision capacity?
But I'm thinking as well, it could be better. So that it's like I've been saying that the large part falls upon you to be the one deciding, in terms of what you want to do, your career aspirations, and there are many factors that you are involved. I've listed maybe some of the factors that determined that why did I choose to take the route of a full master's by research. But I think all of the my contribution that I've made in answering the question, and the contribution that the previous speaker also gave, one of the attendees gave, we are just speaking to the same same thing in terms of that. There are other programs that there is only it's the requirement is that there's both a research component and a coursework component as well. Then there are others where maybe it will be just a research. You just have to do a master's by research. Then you can have also maybe others where now you including other factors now that are sort of personal factors in terms of whether, like when she's saying, even marks, they do play a role as well. Like I've said, your capabilities of doing a full master's by research or to maybe take the article route, because on the research component of the coursework, it's not as in depth as when you do a master's by research as well, right? So to answer the last question, it would be very beneficial, because when you want to be to aspire to have a career in academics, obviously you're going to research, you're going to do research as well, as an academic. You're also going to be supervising students as well. So it will be important, it will be very important, because not all the students that you'll be supervising will only be doing masters by coursework. Right, so that is also a very important factor. And thank you so much for those contributions. Let's continue. We can discuss more during the question and discussion segment. Right.
Okay, Doc.
So
there was another follow-up question. Do you want to take it now, or you want to take it?
I can take it. Yeah, I can take it. It's fine.
Okay. Someone says, with minor dissertation on coursework, are we provided with a research title, or do we come up with our own, which will be approved by the faculty?
Okay, so that depends on the department, maybe possibly that you are from. But sometimes topics are sort of you can be given topics based on the expertise within the department itself. So they can ask maybe the potential supervisors within, or the staff within the department, academic staff within the department, those who are going to be supervising, they can give topics that they're going to supervise on. Then you can pick a topic from that. So it's not necessarily that topic is provided for you, but in some instances they do provide topics for you as well.
Yes, Doc.
Depending on the expertise, yeah.
Just to add there as well, because from our department, in the Department of Public Management and Governance, we were given a sheet of potential topics that you could use for your master's dissertation, but you're also given an option to explore your own topic. Then if it's approved by the High Degrees Committee, then you can carry on with it. But there's also a case where you're given an opportunity to come up with your own topic, and topics are also provided based on supervisors' expertise as well. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So it's always like that. Where they provide, they also allow you to explore your own topic. If you have having your own topic, it's even much better, because I think sort of you are doing something that you possibly have a passion to do. You are doing something that is sort of meaningful to you just as a person, and so on. So they can be provided. They cannot be provided. They can also be provided where you have an option of doing your own, coming up with or conceptualizing your own topic. And when the topic is approved, then you can continue with that. So that usually happens even for those who will progress with the topic. Then they continue to research it on at master's level. Let's say maybe you're coming from honors, then you continue to research it at master's level. If you are coming from master's, then maybe you can sort of progress or based on a similar topic when you are now progressing to your PhD studies. Okay, so let me. I'm now continuing with the session. So we have spoke about the issue of research master's degree, the requirements, coursework requirements, and we said everything is governed by higher degrees and faculty specific policies, in terms of the regulations, academic regulations. Then this is just an overview of the thesis formatting and structure. So the overview of the thesis life cycle, so first, okay, this is a section where we are exploring the thesis formatting and structure, but we'll first look at the overview of the thesis life cycle. So where we start from the proposal, that black, the rectangle that is black, where we are saying your proposal is approval of the proposal. So you write a proposal, you propose, isn't it? You are proposing, trying to show that, okay, this is what I want to do. You are proposing. Then the experts within the faculty, they see whether that is feasible or that is not feasible. So there are many factors that are considered. The topic itself, we also consider existing literature, the gap that you want to occupy, or the significance of the study at PhD level, the method, what questions, what is there a problem? What is the problem? Is it important for you to be doing that study? We look at, there are many issues that are looked at, including issues of budgetary issues as well, and so on, in undertaking that particular study. So it's an exercise of trying to just see whether does it work. So let's say what you are proposing works, then usually it will be approved. So that is also where there's allocation of supervisors and other processes, where sometimes you already have a supervisor before you even start, depending on maybe possibly who did you contact and so on. But sometimes we have other students that normally maybe possibly join from another university. They do not know anyone at the UJ, but they've applied. Then there will be an allocation depending on the expertise of supervisor for you. Then if the proposal is approved, you move to ethics clearance. You start with the research and writing. You move to supervisor feedback, that back and forth with supervisor submitting, then the feedback is provided and you incorporate that feedback. Then when you have finished the write-up and everything, you do the editing of the, there are many other elements that are within these processes, between these processes that I'm not sort of talking about. Then when you do the final editing, of the work, then it goes for internal and external examination. Then you do the final submission to the faculty and to the UJ library for the work to be put in the repository of the library. I see a hand from Wildaman.
Yes, Dr. Gabriel, thanks for taking my question. I just want to check your advice just in terms of this life cycle stage. I know it's probably supervisor dependent, but in your experience, what would you say would be the timelines that we as postgraduate students need to allocate to in terms of each of these different steps before we submit the final one to the faculty?
Okay, before the conclusion of the
Yes.
study, you mean that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that is actually governed. We'll talk about the timelines when we go further, but it's governed by the sort of the allocated years. Whether you're doing part-time or you're doing a full-time study. But we'll talk about that. I have a slide that will focus on that almost at the end. Okay, all right. Thank you, Wildaman. So we'll address that as we go further in terms of the timelines of your expected finalization of your study, the years that the university gives you. So how you use those years now, it's about you. That is the element of discipline that we were talking about. But there are minimum years, then there's also maximum years that we'll speak about. Okay, so moving on, this is sort of in terms of the formatting requirements. I'll start just to address the generally sort of applied formatting requirements and also in terms of the font that is normally used within the university. So the font is usually Times New Roman or Arial. So sometimes Arial, they can require 11 points when you use Arial, but for Times New Roman, it's always 12 points, right? So these are the formattings that you do. You must have a template that you are working on. And when I was doing, from my own experience, my template looked like it's the final product because I had everything arranged well. That when I finished, I didn't struggle to now transfer what I've written to another template, right? So it will be sort of an intense exercise for you to do, because remember, you actually have maybe to copy paragraph by paragraph or section by section, then formatting and so on. So until you're gonna maybe possibly finish 200 pages or so, depending on the length of your sort of final output. That will be sort of something that will be a length procedure for you. So I advise that you already have a template where you are writing on that. The template must be formatted according to these requirements. So the line spacing 1.5, margins 2.5 centimeters on all sides. Why did they to do 2.5 centimeters? Sometimes when you need to you have a binded copy of your study for repository purposes and for library purposes, then when they are binding, there must be enough sort of margin for them to be able to bind without your text being part of the binding. Then footnotes, 10 points. They can be in Times New Roman, Arial. Also, you have to use single spacing. Then the pages bottom centered from abstract onwards. You don't put page number on the. You don't put page number on the when you on the title page. So there's no page number there. Then usually from the until you start to say chapter 1, you use your pages should be in Roman numerals. The page numbers are Roman numerals. But when you start to say chapter 1 and onwards, then you start using the Arabic numerals. These numbers that we are used to 1, 2, 3, 4, in digit form. Then the language usually South African English, but South African English similar to British English, similar to Zimbabwean English. So these sort of follow. For us, it's a colonial legacy, that we follow. So our English is we follow the British one. So even if you use British spelling, South African spelling, and so on, it's clustered around the same type of language and proofing. Then we also have the American one, but we use both. We are in South Africa, so we use the South African English. But if you are writing maybe by articles, if you want to publish, for publishing of that article, the journal that you are targeting will specify what kind of English you are supposed to use. And if they don't specify, then you just use the geographical location to be the sort of a deciding factor on that, right? Then we have these level headings. So many people, they don't know that these level headings, there's something that they mean, right? There's something that they mean. If it's caps for heading level 1, which is the chapter headings, it must be capital letters and bold. So I normally use, instead of using 12 points again for font size, for my headings I make them 14. So I try to distinguish them from the usual text. So I just take 2 points above the required point so that the headings stand out, right? So heading level 1, chapter headings, capital letters bold. Heading level 2, when you say 1.1 for sections, capital, it's small letters are bold there. So sorry for saying caps. It's small letters bold. Then when it's heading level 3, 1.1.1, just small letters. When it's heading level 4, you 1.1.1.1, small letters in italics. When it's heading level 5, I do small letters in italics. Then I take it to the same font size as my text, so to 12 points. But I try to avoid level 5 and above, because when you have 1.1.1.1.1.1.1, maybe 6, 7 times, 8 times, you run out of the formatting of your text. So at the end, you have already finished the formattings that you can do on the text to try to distinguish it. So I try to end at least on 4. I end there. And also at the same time, it's monotonous to have a lot of sections, subsections within a section, right? It becomes sort of difficult for one to, it affects the coherence of your work. It's also difficult even for one to follow it affects other components. Remember, writing components, when one is affected, it also affects the other. There's a question from Santos.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to clarify whether, these hints are really very, very helpful first. Thank you very much. Are they standardized, or, those are the ones that helped you, just for us to have a clue whether it's exactly what we have to, strictly follow?
Okay. All right. So this is a form of, I can say that this is sort of standardized because I've seen this across. From my university where I was, we were using this. We actually had a guiding document that guides this. Here at the University of Johannesburg, if you go and consult from the Harvard referencing style document, it's there. If you Google it, you can see it. Also on the UJ library, it's also there since they are the custodian of the document. You will see these formattings as well there, right? So, but sometimes I've also seen work here, when I was working as a writing consultant, that is brought by students from different faculties where they do not really follow, where they don't follow this. But this is sort of a generally agreed convention across even university, even globally, because I've seen this even in research. When you write for a publication for different journals, we use these sort of levels as distinguishing in terms of the sections that you are using if they don't require you to put section numbers, right? So this is it's a very, very sort of a globalized convention that we follow in writing. But like I've said, this is also, some departments, they just overlook this, but it actually enhances the flow of the work that you are writing, and also in terms of guiding the reader, navigating the reader from one component of your research to the other. There's another hint from Sidibe. Let me allow your mic. Okay, your mic is allowed. You can ask.
Thanks, Doctor. I just wanted to check with you. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, I've got a poor network here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thanks very much. Yeah, and good morning to yourself and the colleagues. I just want to check with you when it comes to heading level 1.1.1. Am I not allowed to use Roman numerals? Am I not allowed to use alphabets, or is that how we should go in terms of the Harvard system?
Okay, I know of the numbering system, the same numbering system that I'm following. Remember the Roman numerals, okay, it's like I've said, it also depends on your department, in terms of the guidelines of your departments, your supervisors as well. Their preference also matters, right? For myself, and what I've just seen sort of generally, is the numbering system follows. It doesn't follow Roman numerals. Journal style, yes, they do that, because a journal article is like sort of it's a very in terms of its length, is very short compared maybe to a thesis where you're having multiple sections. So I would imagine if you are using maybe sort of Roman numerals, it's also in terms of the many people. There are some people that your audience that you are targeting. There are some people who don't even by now. We can be sure of that. If you give them Roman numerals, they cannot even count them well. You understand? So it's just an issue of sort of your departmental guidelines, as well as the faculty guidelines as well. But in terms of the UJ, this is the numbering system that is followed. You can also check within the that Harvard document. I have tried to check if there's another document maybe that guides sort of generally everyone within the university of how do they format, how do they write, sort of assignments, how do they, when they are structuring assignments, when they are structuring any research work, how are they supposed to do it? But I haven't found that particular document. But the one that I've seen with that is containing some of this information is the Harvard referencing style. So this is the sort of important. The Roman numerals, I've seen them being used within the text when you want maybe to number, maybe you are expressing a point, then you are listing something, then you can use the Roman numerals. You can use the Roman numerals to number. Why? Because they are also trying to distinguish, not to avoid saying 1, 2, 3, 4 again within the text, yet they are sectioning, saying 1, 2, 3, 3, 4. So I would imagine if you are using Roman numerals, how are you going to put now 1.1.1.1 in Roman numerals? So I don't think that would be a good way of that will lead to a good presentation of your work, and in terms of readability as well and comprehension of the work that you have done. All right, thank you. I'm progressing. Any question that I can address now before I move on?
Somebody in the chat, it said, what would be the font size for level 3, 4, and 5?
Okay, from level 1 to 4, I use I use 14, but that's my preference. I've seen others using 12. My preference is that the headings should stand out a bit. They shouldn't be similar to my text, because when you use similar to your text, when you arrive now at small letters only, then they are now at the same level as your text. We might not even be able to see the heading, because it's now within just being visualized at the same level as your text. But from level 1 to 4, I use 14 points, right? I only reduce it to the same when I go to heading level 5. Why? Because heading level 5 you have a similar formatting to level heading 4. So I want to distinguish it from level heading 4. So I'll use small letters, but then I'll make them italics. Small letters, the same font as the text, but make it italics, then it will stand out again. But I avoid going to level 5 because of that, and also because of other issues that I've talked about in terms of the comprehension of your work, logical flow, sequencing, and other sort of language and grammatical conventions.
Yeah, I see Clapping's what you call send like a formatting requirements based on the Department of Business Management. And you can see here on the font size, it says 12. Font type, it's Arial and Times Roman. Line spacing is 1.5. Headings, and there's also the margins at 2.5.
Yes.
Page numbering bottom right of the page, and the referencing is Harvard. So it's almost like standard guidelines as well. But I think maybe it might differ from department to department, but the font size and the font type, usually it's standard, yeah.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, remember, when you are doing research, there are certain things that you are not told, and they won't be spelled out word for word to say do this, do that. But at the end of the day, the work, it's your work. The appeal of that work, it rests upon you, right? If you write wrong spellings after the work has been published in the repository of the library, you cannot go and change it and say, I want to put it back again within the repository. So that's why you have to be sort of very attentive, editing your work ruthlessly, proofreading ruthlessly, so that as much as possible, I'm not saying mistakes cannot be there, but as much as possible, you have to make sure that there's no mistake that exists, because that work will be there for others to access, including others globally as well, right? So it must be something that you are proud of. So the formatting, do what also make your work to be presentable in the manner that you want it to be presentable. I will I didn't include maybe possibly how I format, but maybe at the end, if we have time, I can just show you how my thesis appear in terms of formatting. What do I do, including even the table of contents? How do I edit the table of contents? I don't just generate it and leave it, because that is anything that you generate. You use that is generative AI that you are using, isn't it? Even if you generate using Microsoft Office, still that is something that is being done automatically. It will have its own, sort of they use their own default for that, which is not what you want possibly to do. You can see when you generate an automatic table of contents, it will come with another font size and another font type. But you have to change it back to the font that you are using according to your formatting and so on. I would like to continue taking questions, but that will also mean that our session we have to extend beyond 12 o'clock. So you have to just let me know if you are fine with that. Then I continue taking questions.
Maybe they can just indicate with a thumbs up if maybe do they want you to continue and take questions at the end. You can just indicate with a thumbs up so that you can be able to continue the presentation. Is that fine with you, participants? Maybe you can just indicate with a thumbs up if you want Dr. Gabriel to continue and take questions. Okay, perfect. So Dr. Gabriel, you can continue. Then we'll take all the questions at the end of the session.
At the end, yeah. So that, because I still have other very important things that we have to talk about. So we still want to make sure that maybe before maybe around 10 to we wrap up, then we can have a session for question and answers again. Okay, so this is more about the presentation of your work, like I've said, but there's also guidelines from departments and the faculty as well that you can seek on that. Then this is just the structure of the thesis. This is a generic format as well. But what you include, okay, these are things that should always be there. They should always be there. Okay, there are others maybe that we might add, that depending on the requirements, including some in place of declaration, some they can put an affidavit and so on. But this is the preliminary pages. Those pages that I said, when you are numbering them, you can number them using the Roman numerals. So you have the title page with no numbers. You have the declaration, that shows or confirms that the work that you are presenting, it is your own original research, and also that it has not been submitted for any other qualification before. So this, typically it includes a plagiarism statement in line with UJ policies and so on. Then you have the acknowledgements, which is more of an optional section, which allows you to thank those who, formally thank any individuals or institutions that would have contributed or supported you during your research journey, supervisors, family members, and so on. Others include a dedication as well. They also include a dedication, within a declaration. Then they put acknowledgements, dedication. You have to do an abstract, which is simply a summary of your research. I won't go too much in detail in explaining these aspects because we have. I think these are things that are not really possibly new to you. So I will explain some of the elements that I think that are important. So within the abstract, it's simply sort of a concise summary of your research. So mostly for dissertations, thesis, if it's a full one, they can maybe say, I normally use at least maybe a page or a page and a half. Not now that we have 3 pages of summary, So it must sort of outline the research problem, give a bit of a background paragraph, then you progress, looking at issues of research problem, methodology, key findings, conclusions that you have made, contributions that the study have made. If there are any recommendations for policy or practice, then you also put them there. So usually the abstract, the examiners, they use that. They use that to try to just gauge what is it that you have done. They use the abstract, then maybe I go and read the introduction, then after that I go to the conclusion. I must get a sense. Those 2, those 3, your abstract or summary, then I go to your introduction and conclusion. It must tell me everything about your study before I even go into the study itself and start reading other elements. But I would have already gauged, your study from that. Then a list of abbreviations, many acronyms are used, during the write-up. So you have to list them in this section alphabetically with their full forms. So you put the abbreviation or the acronym, then you also put the full sort of for the full form of the abbreviation. Then we have a table of contents, usually an automatic table of contents. You include the list of figures which is generated from the table of contents, because the same formatting, heading formatting that you use, that will enable you to generate the automatic table of contents, is the one that you also use when you do the list of figures and list of tables, if you have that, right? If you're having figures and tables within your work. So it is important to do that. Then from there, you move on now to the main body of your work. So generically, you must have a chapter, an introductory chapter, which is chapter 1. You can have chapter 2, which is sort of literature review. Chapter 3, methodology. Chapter 4, data analysis and findings. Chapter 5, discussion. And chapter 6, which is your conclusions and recommendations, right? So, but others, sometimes others don't have a discussion chapter. They include that in the findings. So they do both the presentation of results and discussion within that section. But what I've seen, the orientation on the University of Johannesburg is for a discussion chapter to be there separately, where you are now making sense of the results and triangulating them with existing literature. So the introduction, the key elements within that: background and context, problem statement, research aims and objectives, research questions or hypotheses. Then you have your research method, justification and significance of the study. Then you have a scope and delimitations of the study. Remember, you are now clarifying what is included and excluded from the study, including the geographical focus of your study. Then that introductory chapter is closed by an outline of the study, briefly summarizing the structure of the remaining chapters. Not just to list that chapter 1, in chapter 2, literature review, chapter 3, methodology. No, you have to explain it further. In chapter 2, the literature review relating to this study will be provided. This will consist of this and this and this. Give me a feel of what to expect within that chapter. So that is the components of the introduction. Then within the literature review, you are now having sort of the whole purpose of the literature review is for you to review and synthesize existing research relevant to the study, providing theoretical and conceptual grounding of the work that you are doing, which is a very important element for us within the CBE. Lerato, I'll take the question during the questions and discussions. You can just maybe keep it for now, so that maybe we can just progress a bit. Yeah, then we'll address it during the questions and discussions. So within the literature review, the key elements, usually thematic or chronological review of the work that you'll be doing within that particular. Everything speaks to the topic at the end of the day. So when you do the thematic or chronological review, you are simply organizing previous studies around the themes or time periods relevant to the topic that you are doing. So mostly within the literature review, if you you must have an introduction section of that particular topic, where you spell out some important sort of elements that you are going to cover within the topic, as well as just sort of a sum up of what is it that you are going to do with the within the topic as well, and giving a little bit of background, linking to the previous chapters, the chapter that would have already also been done. So there you have the theoretical frameworks as well. The conceptual framework, if you are using a conceptual framework, the issues of analysis, gap analysis, which is the essence of the a very important component of the study, especially at PhD level. So the gap that you occupy, you actually identify it within the literature. You see, so you say, okay, this is the gap. Where does your study fit in within the broader literature, as well as critique of literature as well, evaluating strengths, limitations, and contradictions within the extant or existing literature. Then we have the methodology chapter, where issues of research paradigm, research design, population and sampling, data collection methods, data analysis procedures, and ethical considerations are contained. And the focus is to explain how the study was designed and conducted, allowing for replication and assessing the credibility of the findings. Then within the data analysis and findings, you are now presenting the results of your data analysis in a clear, structured, and objective manner. So it's you who also, remember, we refer to other work that has been done before us, for us to have a guideline of what to do within certain sections. It's a very important thing that we learn from others as well. We have done this already, determining with the quality in mind as well. Don't just take anything that you see and say, I'm going to follow this. You have to also assess, the quality of the work, the quality of the output that was produced as an outcome of that particular study, for you to be able to make use of it as a point of reference, with the aim of making your work even better than that. So the key elements within the results, presentation of data, organization, if it's maybe it's a qualitative study, you organize it by themes, or by questions, or by objectives. You make descriptive and inferential statistics, present descriptive and inferential statistics, presenting frequencies, means, correlations, regressions, if it's a quantitative study. Then for qualitative, thematic narratives, highlighting patterns, categorizing, or categories or themes from the data that you would have analyzed, that you obtain from interviews or other textual data, if it's content analysis. Then you also look at emerging insights as well, identifying any unexpected or novel findings that you would have obtained. Then the discussion chapter, it serves as a chapter where you interpret the findings in relation to the literature and theoretical framework, and to draw out the implications of those results. So if you are having two separate sections for the results on their own, then the discussion on its own, don't present and discuss within the results. Then when you come to the discussion section again, you do the same thing. No, you must limit within the results, just stick to presenting what you have found without making sense of that you have to do it within the discussion section. That's where you also triangulate with existing literature that you would have used within your study. So don't introduce new studies there. If you didn't use them within your literature review, your empirical review in your literature section, then in your literature chapter, then don't refer to studies that are new. Rather, if you want to use it, then incorporate it within your literature. Then you can make reference to it within the discussion section. Then we also have the conclusions and recommendation chapter, where you summarize the research, reflecting on its contributions and suggesting future direction. So this is also sort of a similar format that I followed, where I summarize, chapter by chapter, summarizing my research that I've done. Then from there, I look at what is it that I'm sort of contributing to the broader field, contributing to knowledge. Then I look at the recommendations of my study. Then the limitations, recommendations for further research or for future research. Then I also give my final reflections So there you are now closing with a thoughtful statement on the broader implications of the research that you would have done. So that those are sort of important so elements within the main body of your of your study. Then you have the closing sections. Usually the references according to the UJ Harvard style for this College of Business and Economics. But sometimes, depending on your department as well, they can say use another formatting. Some, I've seen others using APA. I've seen others who do not really bother which one do you use. If you use Harvard, be consistent. If you use APA, be consistent. But for our faculty, it's the UJ Harvard that we use. And on the library, website, you can be able to download the referencing guide. So referencing wrongly, both in text and within the reference list, that is sort of something that I view as ignorance, because the referencing guide clearly spells out what you are supposed to do, how we are supposed to reference different types of sources, including even nowadays they've included these issues of social media and so on. As we are sort of advancing as well with technology and other aspects of our social life. So when you are also, there's a difference between reference list and bibliography, right? The difference is that a reference list only contains the sources that you have used and cited within the text, right? So if you didn't cite it within the text, then it mustn't be in the reference list. In other words, we are saying every in-text citation must have a corresponding entry in the reference list. But when we talk about bibliography, it's broader. Bibliography includes both the reference list and other bibliographical notes, and also those articles that you have referred to and did not cite in the text. So the bibliography is broader, but I've seen people say mentioning the reference list also as a bibliography. They are different. Then you have the appendices. Within the appendices, usually all the supplementary material that supports your thesis, your dissertation, or your research output must be there. But all those aspects that are too long, detailed, or length for you to include in the main chapters, you include them in the appendices. Anything that you want to be considered for evaluation of your thesis or of your dissertation or your research output, then you put it as part of the appendices. That is not really much of a privilege on when you are writing articles, though, because of the length of the article. But there are some journals that allow you to have a document that will be published separately, just containing additional materials. So in appendices you can see maybe sort of survey instruments, interview guides, additional analysis if they are there, some examples including raw data if you have, and some other detailed tables, supplementary tables that you can include in that. Then the ethics clearance letter as well, it also forms part of those appendices that are put. But there are many other documents that I've seen others including, depending on the setup of your research design that you used for undertaking the research. So the ethics clearance letter, especially if your research is involving human participants or sensitive data, then that letter, you must be having it. In fact, for any study that they are doing, it's up to the ethics committee to decide whether you have to. What differs is the application procedure. If your study does not involve, let's say you're using secondary data, then the procedure for you to getting an ethics clearance is much shorter and the application is short than when you are collecting the data sort of as primary data. So your ethics clearance simply confirms that the study complied with the ethical standards and institutional requirements. So you need to have, whether you have used secondary data or not, that letter still needs to be issued, detailing that you did not have any interaction with humans and so on, including the environment, animals, and the environment as well. Right, but there are other issues. Ethics, it's a broader topic as well that also that can be a conversation for another day, because it also encompasses a lot of other stuff, including nowadays I've seen research being done on people obtaining data from social media. So because I'm your friend on social media, does it mean you can just use the what I've posted as data without my consent? So those are some issues that are arising, some debates that are sort of ongoing in terms of these issues of ethics requirements, abiding to ethics requirements when you're undertaking study. Then issues that relates also to the duration of the study. But before that, maybe we can talk of the thesis and dissertation. Okay, the dissertation is usually smaller. Those who have done, it will be less than 80,000 words. But when we discuss as well, those who have done maybe full dissertations, who are at PhD level, done full dissertations before, they can also maybe share with us how many words did they use. But the thesis usually at least 80, it can be up to something like maybe 80,000 words, or you can even go beyond that for a full thesis. But for a dissertation, we can share maybe your experiences, with others. Less than 80,000, of course. But sometimes they write, it's a dissertation, but they write it very broad. You see, it will be having even more than that. But we can share about that, on when we do on the discussion segment, when we share our experiences as well. Then the minimum and maximum, answering that question that was posed before, for masters, if it's full time, this is you have a minimum of at least 12 months, right? For masters, if you're studying full time, at least 12 months. Then for part time, the minimum is also 12 months, right? For doctoral, 24 months, and for part time as well, 24 months. So that is the minimum. So the minimum is just the same across the two. Sort of whether sort of if you are studying full time or if you are studying part time, both for masters and doctoral. So 1 year for masters and 1 year for doctoral. Then the maximum for when you are doing masters, if it's full time, it's 2 years. So it's a maximum of 2 years. If it's part time, it's 3 years. Then when you are doing doctoral, for full time is 3 years. Then for part time, it's 5 years. So those are sort of the guidelines. But if you have other experiences that you can share, you can also share with us. So the minimum saves is to sort of try to. You can't just do a whole dissertation or a whole thesis, then in 3 months already you want to submit. It also invites questions on the quality of the work that you would have done, and especially where you have to collect data and other elements. So it speaks to these requirements, speaks both to the quality of the work that you would have produced. If you have other different sort of contributions that you can share here, then we can converse during the questions and discussion section. Then this is now the submission process, the submission procedure. So it starts with a checklist. So the checklist can contain some of these documents or even more, or some of these steps or even more. So it's sort of a comprehensive document detailing out, what you need to make sure, the components that are required for your submissions. So correct thesis format, according to the faculty template, or the template that you would have done, or the template that the university uses as a wall. Then supervisor have signed the declaration form, proof of language editing, if it's applicable, Turnitin report, ethics clearance letter, final thesis and final thesis in PDF format, UJ library submission form, and so there are a host of elements that are contained within the submission checklist that you must tick to show that you have complied with that. Sometimes you don't have to submit the checklist, but it's for you as a point of reference to see that you have covered all aspects that are required for the submission. Then this is the procedure that is followed for internal submissions. You submit a soft copy to your supervisor, and also the faculty conducts the format check. So all the submissions, they are done in accordance with the final submission dates, that are stipulated by the university according to the university's year program. Then also if you submit late, in most cases it will imply that you have to renew your registration, and that you do not graduate in time. So there are other things that you have to also check, issues of abstract, the length of the abstract, usually, like I've said, not exceeding 2 pages or maybe 1,000 words, just as a guideline. And you as a candidate, you are responsible for ensuring that the thesis or the dissertation it's of the required technical and language quality that is required by both the supervisor supervisor and the department as a whole, including the university as a whole, before the submission of that. So the faculty, it also it's the one that must make a decision on the communication that they do, on to communicate to you as a student on as to how the assessment copies are to be submitted. So the faculty communicate that, but also the faculty office as well. You can visit the faculty officers if you don't understand this process. Then the electronic documents, they must be in high resolution. If there are printing of sources, if it is needed, it must be of a high quality, on a high quality paper as well. All text and graphical materials must be clearly legible and should be easily, in print or photocopies that are reproducible, as well as the submission. It should be prepared for upload to the university institutional repository. So those are just some of the elements that are actually listed within the faculty the policy documents that are used within the university that guides this whole submission process, including what is it that is expected and what is it that should be done at which stage, right? Then another important thing, permission to submit for assessment form, it must be signed by both yourself as a candidate and the supervisor. If that is not done, then sometimes then you cannot submit. In fact, if it's a research report, minor dissertation, or thesis, for you to submit it for final assessment, you must have a written permission from the supervisor. But sometimes the supervisor can also, sort of derail that process or delay that process. So let's say the supervisor withholds permission, then there are processes that you have to follow as well, according to the guidelines of the university on how you do that. And if it's unreasonable that the student, then he has a right to approach the head of department, the vice dean, and executive dean in that order with a written submission motivating why the thesis is ready to be assessed. So there are processes that you can follow. I've had those instances where someone says that my supervisor doesn't want me to submit. So if you feel like you have a solid ground that you should be submitting and you have a strong motivation, then you can follow those procedures in having that addressed. So in some cases, you must fill in an affidavit confirming that the work is your own work and that the sources used have been duly acknowledged, issues of copyright approval and so on. Then, like I've mentioned before, there are steps that should be followed. Suitable steps must be followed to make sure that the similarity, possible similarities, copying or plagiarism, must be checked whether did you comply with that. So eternity, a similar report here at UJ, eternity report is actually needed as evidence. It must be provided to for interpretation by the supervisor. Remember, they also have to interpret it, try to see. Certainty in report, it must be the supervisor must be able to interpret it and what it means as a potential flagging for plagiarism or indicator for plagiarism. Then during the examination phase, that's where we have the submission to internal and external examiners, incorporation, and also the incorporation of the examiners feedback. So when you are nearing completion as a student, you have to, in conjunction with your supervisor, you talk to your supervisor first. Then the supervisor will notify the higher, higher degree, the faculty office or the faculty officer who are responsible for higher degree studies, for them to be notified of the intention to submit. So that should be done at least 4 months in advance to start the process to appoint external assessors. But that is a process that is done by the supervisor. Then if the supervisor and the HOD agree on at least, they must agree on at least 2 assessors for a master's study, right? And for a PhD study, at least 3 for doctoral studies to be proposed to the faculty higher degree committee, right? So that has to be done. So if there's that agreement, like I'm saying, that for master study, at least 2, right? 1 internal, external, but for a PhD study, at least 3. 2 should be at least 1 should be international. When I did mine, I had 2 who were international and 1 who was local, but at least 1 must be from outside South Africa. Then the other 2, 1 can be internal, within the institution, and 1 outside the institution. Then for research dissertation, at least 2 external assessors must be appointed, 1 with doctoral qualification and the other with a master's qualification. Then, so all those elements as well, they are detailed out, within the university, policies. So, and I've attached those documents, the links to the documents at the end of this presentation. The presentation slides will be shared with you as well, so that you can be able to refer to those sources that I've attached. So it will detail out the whole submission procedure. Then after the examiner have examined, then you receive the supervisor receive the feedback reports are received. Then due processes are followed for that feedback to be shared with you. Then that's where now you have to incorporate the feedback of the examiner and also be able to see the recommendations that the examiners would have made. Then after all that has been done, I will show you a bit of some of the recommendations that usually come from the examiners for different levels of study and research types. Then after that, then that's where you have to do the final submission, where you implement the corrections and everything. Then when it has been approved, that you can submit, then you have to submit a PDF in PDF format to the UJ for repository purposes. Then you also have the faculty, you have to sign your study off for that final submission. Right. So this is how maybe a bit of how the report examiner report can look like, and what it means for the decision that is done by the faculty, and how the faculty should respond. So this is for masters, at master's level, for example. Let's say this is for a research report, minor dissertation, and dissertation results proposed by assessors. Let's say the assessor, both assessors recommend a mark of at least 50%, and the difference between the mark is less than 15%. Then the faculty, they can respond by averaging the marks. So usually they just average the marks. So the faculty higher degree committee may consider adjusting the marks at 73%, 74%, 75 to 75%, and those that are at 63 to 64, then they can take them to 65. But that doesn't mean that they have to do it, but they can consider doing that. Then let's say maybe both assessors recommend a mark of at least 50%, but the difference between the mark is more than 15%. Then for dissertations, for minor dissertations, the faculty may decide to average the marks and appoint an additional assessor, or they can consider the recommendation and recommend an appropriate mark, or appoint an additional assessor, average the third assessor's mark with the mark of the original assessor or moderator that is closest to that of the third assessor to determine the final mark. So there are processes that are followed that I've also just included here for different levels of study, including for the doctoral as well. For the doctoral, usually they just are recommending awarding the qualification with or without minor correction, but without the need for resubmission or reassessment. So mostly this is what people usually get if you have done well. But if they then that's sort of that the thesis is being accepted unconditionally, or sometimes that it can have correction, but you don't have to resubmit for assessment again. Then the faculty can recommend the awarding of the qualification following a declaration from the supervisor that all the corrections were implemented by the student. Two or more assessors recommend the failure of the thesis, then the faculty can recommend that the majority result carries and the student fails. So I've included that as well in terms of these the faculty responses in terms of the assessors, the recommendations of the assessors is inscribed within the assessment report, for at doctoral level, right? Then there are also some special cases that can emerge where, let's say, a master's can be research can be converted to doctoral research. So that conversion, it's only possible between 9 and 18 months of initial registration. So in other words, that will, if you feel that your start it's not really, this can be converted to a PhD start, then the university offers that, but it requires a supervisor's motivation, also a seminar presentation, and a faculty higher degree committee and Senate approval, right? So if you decide to do that, I haven't seen it being done, but if you decide to do that, it's allowed in the university. If you decide to do that, then you have to forfeit the master's degree upon conversion. So automatically that become like you'll be conferred with a PhD. So you won't be conferred with a PhD and both a master's for that study. Then we also have in terms of academic regulations, master's assessment and completion, technical and language editing required, minor dissertation or full dissertation being the core deliverable for masters, peer-reviewed publication submission or exemption is required. The supervisor must grant permission to submit. Disputes must be resolved by executive dean in consultation with the HOD and the faculty higher degree committee. So those are some of the requirements. I've already mentioned some of these before. So for masters by full masters by research, they usually require that you must have at least maybe one article in a publishable form that you submit to your supervisor. Then PhD at doctoral level, the core output is a thesis. Sometimes article, it could include an article style format. If you do articles, then you still have to put them together into a sort of a thesis document with an introduction, then the papers that you have done, then you also have to have a concluding chapter as part of as part of that. Then, but since 2024, the UJ is also now having an oral defense. So within the defense, okay, there it is actually compulsory that the defense of a viva, which forms sort of part of the requirements for a doctoral qualification to be completed from 2024, right? So the viva for oral defense, it usually consists of a panel that includes doctoral candidates, the non-assessing chair, at least two, but preferably maybe 3 assessors, the supervisors as an ex officio observers as well within that gathering. So the supervisor usually invited to offer a viewpoint or point of clarification, for the start. So the process, having a non-assessing chair who meets with the assessors immediately before the oral defense to explain the approach, outline expectations, and highlight themes among the assessors' reports, that maybe those that highlight salient positives and negatives. Then the doctoral candidate will be required to provide a brief outline of their study and highlight the main findings and conclusion that they would have made, including the significance as well. So this is done either orally or using another mode of presentation, depending on the faculty, the faculty or the department as well, in terms of how that gathering can be done, whether online or it should be done face to face. Some faculties, they do the Viva online. So after the presentation and under guidance of the non-assessing chair, questions and discussions, they now take place, ascertaining that the student is the author of the work, determining what the student meant or intended by any part of the work, confirming through the questions and discussions whether the work is of acceptable quality, allowing the student to reply to any concerns that the examiners may have relating to other aspects of the work, and exploring points of interest for their own interest or the future plans of the student, as well as offering guidance and advice to the student for further development of the work and the student's career. So the duration usually it's about 60 to 90 minutes, and the student is permitted to bring any material with them, but not permitted to communicate with anyone outside the room or outside that gathering or the meeting. So after presenting, the candidate can leave the room. Is asked to leave the room. Then the supervisors remain to answer any questions, and the chair will facilitate a discussion on the merits of the work that the student would have presented. Then the chair at the end must provide a report to the faculty higher degree committee whether they are in agreement with the result or they are not in agreement. Then the final report must be signed by all the assessors and submitted to the faculty officer within a period that is determined by the faculty higher degree committee. Then there are other issues that also now relates to finalization, and publication and dispute, finalization, certification and graduation, where the final submission dates usually last working day of May for the first semester, and the for the second semester it's October. Then the library submission of electronic copy required for graduation. Certification follows UJ certification policy. So all this, you will find it in the academic, the higher degrees academic regulations for 2024, section 15.10.8. That also details the issues of intellectual property and publication. Then 15.8, resolving conflicting results recommended by assessors for master's degree. If you have to possibly maybe appeal, we have already talked about some of the processes that can be followed, but unresolved disputes are handled by the HOD and then the executive dean. Then assessment impasse is resolved through the faculty higher degree committee using additional assessors, expert advice, or arbitration. So all this, you can find it in the higher degrees administration and as well as the academic regulations of 20 for UJ of 2024. Right. Then here are just some useful tips. So there should always be a student supervisor agreement, that you can download there. It's very important, the memorandum of understanding, between you and the supervisor. So which is sort of mandatory for all masters and doctoral students. You can download an example there. That must be signed within a month of registration and stored electronically in faculty records. So that is very important to detail out, the contract between you and the supervisor, detailing out the expectations, what is it that is expected of you as a student and what is expected of the supervisor as the one supervising the study. So usually the supervisor's responsibilities revolve around providing guidance, timely feedback, assessing readiness of the students for submission, for the work for submission, and other host of responsibilities. Then the student responsibilities, meeting deadlines, maintaining ethical standards, drafting and revising of chapters, which is the back and forth process that happens towards the at different cycles, during the cycle of the whole postgraduate research journey. Still on the final lap, you get support that you can get also from supervisors and co-supervisors, faculty research office, postgraduate school writing. We do we do research writing consultations here at the postgraduate school. So we cater for postgraduate students, so which is the right place that you go. If you go to the writing center of the university, it normally focuses on undergraduate studies. Then UJ library services for referencing assistance, Turnitin, and they are the ones, like maybe EndNote for sort of AI assistance in generating references, then in citations as well, automatic citations. Then the research capacity development, we do offer these workshops, like we're offering workshops. Like now, if you go on our Moodle communities, there's all the workshops that we do and events that even dates back to around 2022. So we have all the resources, we keep them. Sometimes even the presentation slides as well as the recordings that we would have are recorded for each session. Then we upload them on our Moodle community, on our YouTube channel. So you must follow us on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel so that you can see those resources when we upload them, and also make sure that you are part of our Moodle communities for masters and doctoral research by research, and also the community for masters by coursework, honors, and including those final year students. So there's a host of support that you also get here at the university during your postgraduate journey. These are just my concluding remarks. Successful thesis completion, also any other type of output that you'll be doing is determined by the degree program that you are undertaking. It requires that you adhere to the structured policies of the university, formatting standards, submission protocols, actively engaging with your supervisor or supervisors, including the co-supervisor, and understanding institutional requirements and leveraging on the available support that I've just listed some of them. Then also by understanding the requirements and procedures, then that makes it possible that you can navigate your journey with confidence and with clarity. I see quite a number of hands, but let's just these are some references that I've used, that I've said that you can access and be able to read further on some of the aspects that I included within this presentation. So the university higher degrees policy, the university higher degrees administration, then also the academic regulations, right? Then, so we needed to have a sort of a shared experience from Mr. Lawrence Hassan, who is a recent graduate, one of our colleagues who recently graduated in Masters in Public Management and Governance, so that he maybe possibly for him to just share with us a little bit of briefly how his experience was. Lawrence, just summarize it. I can see there's a number of hands there. Maybe we'll have an intense sort of an open discussion. So just maybe just briefly do a summary of your experience in 2 minutes.
Yeah, so basically I was a recent graduate at the College of Business and Economics, in a master's in public management and governance. So I'm not gonna take much of your time. So basically I specialize my master's was a coursework master's, of which in the first year I did coursework. Basically, we did modules where we submitted assignments, we wrote a few tests here and there. But for me, it was a preference basically, and my supervisor also recommended that we do a coursework research. In masters, of which I really did enjoy it. It was really comprehensive, and it was a good experience as well. So in the first year we did the modules basically just like how you do it in your undergraduate, but it's just different because most of the modules that you'll be doing is research related modules. It's just like bringing you into that research mood while you also um, coming up with your research proposal and your research structure during that part of the coursework. Then obviously from there on, then we started creating the research from the second year. Then it was full research now. But actually my research was also quite comprehensive. Did a quantitative study on good governance and economic development. And I submitted in October. Yeah, at the end of the year in October, which is usually if you are submitting October, you submit before the 31st. I think, yeah, before the 31st, that's when your submissions. But also, obviously, before you submit, there's a few things that also you are required to submit after the research has been compiled, after all the back and forth with the supervisor. You send it to the supervisor comments, reviews it, then you come back. Now you have to deal with the comments, then it goes back and forth. So until the research is now done and the supervisor um, is now satisfied with what we have written together as the authors of the paper, then that's when he will say, okay, now it's ready to submit. But also, as Dr. Gabriel mentioned, that some students might feel like my research is ready to be submitted, and the supervisor disagrees. He says, no, let's work on a few things. So I think at the end of the day, the supervisor just does not want to submit because you are saying it's ready, because supervisors are also experts in their field and they know if a paper has to go out with their name on it, obviously it's their reputation as well. So at the end of the day, when the supervisor says now the paper is ready to submit, then which means the paper is ready to submit, which means they have ticked all their checklists, whatever that needs to be there on the paper is now there. Then from there, in terms of the submission procedures, so after it's done, obviously we put it on Turnitin. Um, then he puts it on Turnitin. So obviously you as a postgraduate student, you also have access to Turnitin on your U-Link. I think you should be able to access Turnitin where you can submit on your own. Obviously, this doesn't hinder the process that your supervisor will do when it comes to his Turnitin report. It doesn't interfere. So this is just like a separate Turnitin that you will do at your own time, just to see if your work is really within the standards and there's no any plagiarism. So you put it on Turnitin. So obviously the Turnitin usually it's anything between 15 and below, if I'm not mistaken, but also sometimes it depends with faculties. So if even if it's 15, but your supervisor feels like there's a few things that needs to be tweaked, he will send it back to you. Then he will also put it on his Turnitin. So once he puts it on his turn it in as a supervisor, then he's satisfied with you, then he will send it to you, then you say fix this and this, that. Once it's sorted or once it's below the 15% mark, then he will tell you, okay, now it's time to submit. Then he will send you a batch of documents that you will need to fill in, which is the affidavit, which obviously must be stamped by a commissioner of audit declaring that this is your research. And also, I think the supervisor has to, then you have to sign the declaration of student declaring that also it's your work and you haven't submitted this work at any other institution as well. Any supervisor has to sign that as well as the language certificate. If you did language editing, you need to provide your language editor for your dissertation needs to provide you with a language certificate. So obviously, when you do look for a language editor, please do find language editors that are credible, that will edit your work so that when it goes out, it doesn't come back and they say, no, there's some grammar errors, there's no clarity here and that. Because once your work goes out there, you need to put up your best work. Then from there, obviously, you submit your full dissertation with the changing report, the affidavits, and the declaration. Then that's basically it. So once it goes out, then obviously it goes out to the faculty officers. Then obviously the assessors would have been appointed by then to assess your research, because obviously mine was a master's, so it has to have one internal and one external, but it doesn't have to be international because the external was from another university. Then the internal was one from within the university. Then once it's assessed, then they tell you that it has gone out for assessing. Then you wait. Probably your results might come back within the year, probably at the end of the year, or they'll tell you your results the following year, maybe in January, that you have passed. Then if it's passed, they'll tell you that it comes back with minor corrections or major corrections, or it's rejected. But obviously mine just came with a few minor corrections, that some of them were even suggestions, but we just fixed here and there, and that's it. Once I send it out again, then it came back and it was paused. And yeah, that's basically it. Then from there, then obviously Dr. Gabriel mentioned the library information center and the library form. So you also have to submit your thesis to the library. They will send you an email that you have met all the requirements, blah blah blah, for this qualifications. Congratulations. But for the final requirement, please send your full dissertation in PDF format, and you must fill in the library form as well. So that's just your details, and your supervisor has to sign. Then once that goes out, then I think after like a few weeks or months, you will get your letter of graduation saying you're graduating on a particular day with all that information. Then yeah, that's basically it. So I don't know if I missed anything there. You can be able to ask me any question. I think yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the experience. But yeah, obviously the bigger experience is when you are writing out your dissertation. The submission procedures, it all goes well because you feel like you have now done your research. But the main thing is obviously writing down your research with your supervisor, going back and forth. But the submission procedure is usually smooth within the faculty. Everything is well communicated. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for sharing with us your experience. With through your journey, as a master's student, and congratulations to you once again for this for the milestone. Now I think we can open the floor for questions and discussions, or if there's anything that you want to share with us. I'll just take the hands in the order that I've seen, starting with Santos. I'll take the virtual hands first, then we'll move on to the chat box. So I'll start with Santos. Unmute yourself and ask your question or make your contribution. Your mic is enabled.
Yes, your mic
Okay.
is on.
Thank you very much. It is now. I think you can hear me, right?
Yes,
So
perfectly. We can hear.
I actually have 2 or 3 questions. The first one is related to the innovation of this defense, right? The first question is this, applies to even those that, registered before the implement, or before 2024, because as it comes to me now, 2023, 2022 cohorts, there was no defense requirement. You complete, then you submit, and it's over. Is it applied to all those that are registered before the 24 or not? The second thing is, I don't know whether I misunderstood this. So the student defends in this committee, then after defending, he goes out and the person who responds to the questions is the supervisor. I don't know how that works. I just want to clarify. And the third question is related to the Turnitin. My experience is that when I submit the paper to my Turnitin, if anyone else submits the same paper to the Turnitin, it's going to pick my submission. So it's likely to give him like 100% of what I've submitted, right? Because even myself, if I submit through other person's Turnitin, it's going to give me 100%. So just clarification on that as well. And thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, I will start with the Turnitin, then move on to the one of after you have that issue of saying that after on the Viva, after presenting, then when the decision has to be made, when discussion, the chair has to facilitate the discussion, then the student has to move out, then the supervisor can be there to remain, maybe to answer other any clarifying questions that need to be answered as an outcome of the discussion. Is done. Then the other one, I'll ask you to recite it again. So in terms of the Turnitin, yeah, like you're saying, the first person to submit. Remember, when you are you as a postgraduate student, you also have access to Turnitin for you to test your submissions, just for testing whether they've are you within the prescribed limits, and also for you to check and correct your work if there's any areas that are highlighted much for similarity. But if you are the one who have you are submitting on your own sort of a profile, you accessing that Turnitin through your link, as yourself, then that will not be, it will not be flagged as 100% when you submit it for the second time. But the risk is when you have given me to submit for you, then you go and want to submit it yourself again somewhere else, or give someone else to submit, then it's going to pick what I would have submitted, that this has already been submitted and it's within it's already within the repository of Turnitin. So the way it's set up is multiple submission. It's set up as multiple submission, so it won't pick up your work as 100%. But if someone else submit that is not you and not being submitted on the same assignment, then it will flag it up as a 100%, if you have sort of put the same text, right? So
and how will it work with the supervisor?
You say?
And how will it work with the supervisor? How will the supervisor submit to check from their side?
Okay, so when you have submitted, I haven't seen a case where because the supervisors, they will say, okay, I don't know what they do later in terms of whether do they also submit again after I've submitted, but I've seen them working with the Turnitin report that come from that is submitted by the student, because it's already set in a manner that is that is acceptable according to the requirements of the university. If you check that submission that you have yourself, it's already the word limit and so on, where it starts flagging similarity is very, very low. I think it was 4 words or so, which is the strictest, sort of the most stringent conditions already that are placed there. So it is the same. So whether you submit yourself, if you have changed that, I will see it on the report that you changed that. Because it's written, the number of words that have been used, they will be there on the similarity report as well. Okay, so then on the part of the Viva, what was your question on the Viva? Is he still with us?
Yes, on the defense, right?
Yes, defense, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking whether the application of the defense requirement is applies to even those that are not registered or that registered before the introduction of the requirement or not.
I'm thinking it's dependent on when are you graduating. When did you submit? So if you are submitting now, then you must defend. Because it's now part of the requirements for one to graduate, right? It's now part of the requirements. So if you had already submitted before 2023, I don't think those people who graduated in 2024 were asked to defend before they graduated, because they'd already passed the requirements and the degree was to be conferred on them. So the degrees were simply conferred to them. But for those who are now submitting, because this is linked now to the submission rather than when did you first register at the university, right? So then in terms of the Viva processes, we also have resources that we have from some facilitators who have been chairs, who have had the privilege of being chairs in their faculties for this Viva. So the process, like I've been mentioning, the student, you present the significance of your study, all those other aspects that I was pointing out that you should be able to communicate to the idea is to show that besides checking the relevance of what you have done, does it warrant you to be a PhD holder, to be a doctoral, to be a doctor, to be specific, and also to just check whether are you the one who did the work. So they are evaluating all that to see, do you know the work that you have done? Are you sort of cognizant of the things that you have done? As well. But your supervisor is also there to ask to answer questions that maybe and give clarity as well to some of the questions that will be being asked. So like I said, that within the process as well, the supervisor remain to give clarity, but you as the candidate, you have to go out when people are deliberating on what you would have presented, and also trying to warrant whether can this be acceptable? Can the result that was given, those recommendations that were given by the examiners, can they be accepted? I can move on to Nick.
Thanks
Yes,
very
yes.
much.
Go.
Thank you. Thanks. Two quick questions. The dates you gave us for the end of May and the end of October, those are the deadlines for submitting, right? Not the deadlines for the final library copy?
Yeah, those are for submission, yeah.
For submission. So then if you're intending to submit at the end of May, you have to give your intention to submit by the end of January, am I right?
Yes, it's usually 4 months in advance, but sometimes 4 months in advance, so that the assessors can be appointed. Because assessors are only appointed when you have submitted sort of an intention to submit.
And then the other question was about the format of the PhD by paper. So I'm a little bit unclear on a couple of things. If they can't possibly want you to have it published by the time you submit, because sometimes journals take up to 2 years to go through a process. So
Mm.
do the papers have to be submitted or just prepared for the PhD by paper? And then do you have appendices and references at the end of each article as you go along?
Or when you are now presenting them within the when you are now making a sort of a full document.
Yeah, if you have a full document for your PhD by papers, first of all, do you put appendices and references at the end of each article instead of at the end of the whole thesis? And then the other question is, what is the requirement exactly about submitting these papers? Do they have to just be submitted, or do they have to be published? Because sometimes journals take 2 years or something, or 18 months to do it.
Okay, preferably is that the papers should be published, but I've seen that because of what they are talking, the time frames that journals do take, that they can take quite a long time for them to do the review process and so on. I've seen people graduating, but after just that they have submitted, but at least accepted for review.
Right. Understood.
Right. Yeah. They've submitted but accepted for review. So, but at least maybe one. Because during the course of the whole PhD, you can't say you don't even have one that was published. They can have maybe one or two, but maybe not fulfilling all the required papers. So the others now would be maybe under possibly under review. That is acceptable. Then the question on in terms of the formatting, for me it would make more sense for references to be sort of provided at the end of each paper that you will be presenting.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, it would make more sense. And I've seen I've seen some work of students, especially from the health science, who do that. Right. But that is a conversation as well that you can have. Remember, your supervisors as well, they have their own specific requirements in terms of how they want those sources to be presented. But if you present them as part of a, remember, because all if you decide to say maybe you want to put them at the end, then you have to make sure that you are using author date system only.
Yes.
Right. You have to refine, because also when you are writing for papers for publication, there are different referencing styles that are used, and for me, I think it's important for you that when you are now making it in a sort of a dissertation or a thesis style, then you have to redo again the references to follow one system.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Because you see the different referencing styles that have been applied. Then when you present the references as one, now they won't make sense. So if you decide to do that, then you have to refine everything. Then if you are following Harvard, then make sure that you just use author date system for all the papers.
Yes.
Right. But both ways, I've seen them being accepted at the university.
And is there a requirement about whether 3 or 4 articles is required?
Also, that you can have a conversation with the faculty officer in terms of how many are required. But for PhD, some departments, some faculties, they even want 4 papers for that. Yeah, so that will just differ, but it's a conversation that you already have with your supervisor in terms of the number that is required for you to be able to for your degree to be conferred.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
I can move on to Rayat.
Hello, sir. How are you? Thank you for your time.
I'm well, thank you.
I've actually forgotten my second and so on question, but just if we could just maybe send an email or a phone number, maybe I could just contact afterwards when I remember and rewatch the recording. But my primary question was with regards to the language editing with the Postgraduate Writing Center. I was instructed by my supervisor to get the language editing done and try to find a contact person. I did try contact, obviously, the other writing center, and then, like you mentioned, they don't work with the postgraduate, masters, and doctorate students. Would you please advise me on how I can proceed to find someone?
Okay, you can contact me. I've put my email there. Then we can discuss further there by email in terms of how we do not do editing of work and reviewing of work, including proofreading, technical editing. But we do have recommendations that we can give of people who can assist.
Yes,
With,
I think that's what he
yes,
was suggesting. Okay.
Yeah, you can just email me on my email address, including the question that you wanted to ask when you have remembered.
Okay, yeah, I'll watch the video back on YouTube, and when I remember, I'll contact a second time when I remember the question.
Okay, thank you.
No, so thank you very much for your time, sir.
You're welcome. Lerato.
All right. Hi, everyone. Oh, I feel intimidated. It looks like people are further into the project. You're speaking PhD, so I feel like you're speaking over my head. So I'm busy with a mini dissertation. I've just presented my research proposal. So ethics forms have gone in. I now need to start. I wanted to check, you've answered some of the questions when you were busy with the presentation. On introduction, is there a special format, or in terms of pages per chapters, do you have a specific number that we need to do? Yeah, that's my question.
Or you mean to say the specific number of pages that you have to do?
Of pages, yes.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes I always my advice to people is that, you know, when you are doing research, the question that you must ask yourself is whether have you really done justice to the topic within that particular section, right? If it's within the introduction, have you sort of in a manner that is justified, cover all the essential elements that, you know, if one is reading your work, they are able to understand the background and context, they are able to understand what the problem is, they are able to know the questions that they are asking, the objectives that you want to reach, how are you going to reach those, to answer those questions, or how are you going to reach those objectives? That's the methodology part. Then what significance, you know, what is it that, why are you doing the research? Why is it even significant? It's always important, even though it's not a requirement for at master's level, but it's also it's important, especially if you want to publish out of that mini dissertation one day. It's important for you to clearly spell out why is it, what is the significance, what's important that you are doing that distinguish your study from the rest of the other studies. So usually, if it's a mini dissertation, it's always shorter than a dissertation itself. But it just as a guideline, I've seen a proposal shouldn't be too long. Okay, let me say, because much of the information used within chapter 1, introductory chapter, emanates from the proposal, right? But your chapter 1 should not be maybe that too long, right? I would think maybe for a mini dissertation, anything up to maybe, let's say, was for me to give, like, to say this is the minimum, this is the max, I can give at least maybe possibly the maximum, something that can, in a way, you should have really presented your story in a manner that is understandable, or your topic in a manner that is understandable. I would say maybe not more than 10 pages, right, for a mini dissertation. But for a dissertation, a full one, about 15 pages. For a PhD, around 20 pages. You should be able to have meaningfully sort of presented your your introductory chapter, right? But that just depends on the way that you write, and it shouldn't be too long. But all the elements should have been done justification on when you are sort of presenting your work. Okay, thank you, Lerato, for the thumbs up. So let's move on to the chat box, Lawrence, and let's just check.
Yes, Doc. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, there is quite some of them are just comments that were going on in the chat box. But we can jump right off. Start.
It's quite a number.
What is allowed, turn it in
I have a
percentage. I
question.
think we've answered that. At which phase
okay.
does one defend their thesis? I think we also answered that it's at the end of their doctoral studies. Then with the editing, somebody was talking about the editing, then there are university recommended editors. Okay, somebody was just commenting that there are university recommended editors, or one can get external ones. Yeah, then there's some of them are just comments there. Questions with regards to the Postgraduate Writing Center, who can I contact for language editing? I think that one was answered as well. Is there any exact due date for the submission, or is it just any date in October? And about that, though?
I can address this one that came from Nikki. That is say, can the heading for level 3 or 4 be in blue as Word sometimes does? So you still have to, because like I said, those are the default settings on Word itself. So by default, it will because it's a hyperlink. It's hyperlinked to that particular page, right? It will be blue. It's just but it's you who have to change it into the font style that you are using, and also the color and the size. So it's you who have to do that. So the formatting that you do as the one doing the work. Where were you, Lawrence?
I was right there by where we were talking about. I think there was a question where somebody was talking. Is there a specific format for a thesis? By publication. Subsequently, are the chapters in the thesis supposed to be word by word as what is in the published articles?
Yeah, so for that, I think I've already also answered that one, because I said usually I've seen an introduction. The introduction, you have to write it, because remember, you are having maybe 4 or 5 articles that you have written, but you are now saying all of them are linked to one topic, isn't it? So you are now writing for the broader topic, but then you present those papers that you have written as you know, as part of the sort of the contents of that particular document that you'll be doing. Or let's say we are now putting it in form of a dissertation. I normally call them essays, maybe essays on something, then which is those papers now. So each paper by paper, then you put it there. So you do not summarize the paper. I've just seen the papers being put like as it is, but the introduction should sum up everything. Then you present those papers. Then you also do a conclusion where you are concluding on everything as a whole. So that's my answer to that. When you are now turning your papers into sort of a thesis format or a dissertation format. The restrictions on the length of a thesis, yeah, of course they are there, but I've never really seen them being applied. Yeah, so this is usually around 80,000 words. By then you would have really done justice to the topic, but others do less than that, and others do more than that, and it's still accepted in that manner. But the guidelines, I've also put them there from master's by mini dissertation up to thesis. So the 80,000 words is for full research, or partial one. It's for full research. What are the people going beyond the maximum? They normally put a 10% margin there that you can exceed maybe by 10% or so. But some people, because for a dissertation, we just feel like that's a place where you can say everything that you want to say, sort of. Yeah. So it can be exceeded, but also for you to exhaust 80,000 words, that will be sort of a long time of writing that you'll be doing. Yeah, to a student from the university, you will have to appeal, and this is what are the implications of going beyond the maximum time. Yeah, when you go beyond the maximum time, they will take you out of the program, but then you can appeal that. You can appeal that. I haven't met anyone who have been in such a similar case, but if you exceed, then it's like you can be taken out of the degree program. Sometimes also some degree programs are phased out. It can be phased out whilst they are still there trying to do it. Joined a little bit late. I would like to know if the presentation will be shared with you. Okay, it will be shared. The presentation and the recording will be shared.
Yes, I communicated that in the emails as well, that it will be shared through our model communities, or you can email us at rcdinquiries.uj.ac.za. I think that's all, Doc, from the questions that were in the chat box. Most of them were answered. I think you've addressed all of the questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we have also gone beyond time by almost 30 minutes. Maybe we can take one last question from William. You can just go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Just in terms of editing, are we allowed to use the app Grammarly to assist us in sentence construction? So, for example, if I wrote a paragraph or a sentence, I've had to apply for a license with UJ for the app Grammarly. I just want to confirm that that is permissible and that is not something that we should or should not do.
You mean editing using Grammarly?
Yes, so let's say obviously Grammarly is not writing the thesis. I'm writing the thesis. I'm writing, let's say, chapter one. I've now written my chapter one. I kind of want to get a sense check as to the structure of the sentences. So am I allowed to pass through my own work, which I've done, into the Grammarly app, and it makes recommendations for example, sentence structure or commas or editorials of for the purpose of kind of streamlining what is being presented. So Grammarly is not determining the content. It is taking content I've already produced and researched on, and it's now merely providing me guidance as to, well, delete this word, replace it with this word, put a comma here, put a full stop here, actually separate it into two. So editorial work. Is that permissible or not permissible?
I think very, very, very permissible, because after all, the university give us a sort of subscribe for us to use Grammarly. So which means that is the purpose of Grammarly. I haven't seen any limitations that the university imposed to say when you use Grammarly, do this. So I'm sure these are some of the generative AI tools that the university allowed us to use just for sort of, it's just the same as using the spell checker on Microsoft Office, isn't it? It can also suggest what they are supposed to do. So I believe that I haven't seen any policy that doesn't allow you to do that, unless if Grammarly, because I do not really use Grammarly much for my work. I had it, then it just disappeared, then I just forgot about it. But it does help a lot in terms of also flagging out some errors that you'll be making, grammatical error. It's like sending your work to an editor after. If you send to me as an editor, I'm going to check all that isn't it correct, maybe some spellings that are wrong, try to question on the sentence structure and so on in terms of grammatical conventions and other language rules. So for me, you can use Grammarly.
Yeah, plus also someone commented
Thank
that
you.
the supervisor advised them to use it. They recommended them to use it. As well as in my study, I also use Grammarly. My supervisor actually recommended it because you can actually also access it under your ULink tab as well. It is there to all postgraduate students. You can use it Grammarly as well to edit your work as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Doc.
There's a question coming from Gavin Sajini. Let me go back. I know the total words were covered for master's and doctor's dissertation, which is 8,000 words. What about for a minor dissertation, which coursework was done in the first year? So minor dissertation usually 25 to 35,000 words. If it's minor, 25 to 35,000. The 25 to 35, because a dissertation, a full dissertation can be maybe around 45,000 words. But like I said, ask yourself that, have I done justice to the topic? Did I rush to conclude? Ask yourself that question, because really the page numbers and the number of words, that's not really sort of cannot be the only factor determining whether you have clearly covered all the aspects of the topic that you are doing, in terms of communicating the significance of the study and the outcomes of the study itself. That's why I'm saying that sometimes these words limited, we often ignore them and just check on the content of what the person has done. But there's no way you can say, I've written a thesis and it's only 50 pages. So because we know that in 50 pages you didn't cover all aspects. If you covered them, then you did not do justice to those aspects. But those guidelines are there. You can use them also if you want, using them with maybe a 10% margin of exceeding or even doing maybe below that. So so they say, okay, then regarding October submissions, we have to notify a request for 4 assessors 4 months prior. Okay, but it's not you who notify the request, it's your supervisor who do that. So you tell your supervisor that you want to submit, then the supervisor initiates the process. You give you the forms to sign, then the whole process of submitting to the faculty higher degree committee, the appointment of assessors is done by the supervisor. The supervisor is the one who knows who is going to be assessing the work. Yes, you have to have your dissertation read by then, but not by the 4 months. You can, if you are sure that you are going to be meeting the submission deadline, then you that's when you can give a notice to submit, right? But even if you think that you are not going to meet that notice, then you can also apply for extension of that. Extension for your submission. I think they can allow maybe a month more or so for you to be able to submit, but it's not going to be a long time that they allow you if you are missing the submission deadline. So it's a process done by the supervisor in liaison with you, but it should be initiated when you are sure that you are finishing. You are now just polishing, because on the date of the submissions, it's when you are now submitting the final the start output for assessment. For the data chapter, do we have to use the Atlas software only, or we can make use? You can make use of other softwares like NVivo if you have it. You can do the coding traditionally yourself. You can do coding, what Atlas TI does, you can also do it on your own. So the method of analysis, you use acceptable methods that you can use to analyze. So you can use NVivo if you have the software for NVivo. You can use Atlas TI if you have, but you must use softwares that are widely used for analysis, of which Atlas TI is widely used for qualitative data, and NVivo as well we don't have the license at the University of Johannesburg, but it's being used as well. Compliment. I also used it. My supervisor recommended. That was Grammarly. I know the total of words were covered. We answered that. I also believe we must also write an article and publish it over and above the dissertation submission. Yes, the requirement, because remember also the university want to push publication. So the requirements as well. For masters, you also write one for if there is full research masters. Masters by research, they also require one article, that you submit to the supervisor in a publishable form. So which means the supervisor can submit. But even if you don't want to publish, the supervisor can still publish your work after. You are given up to 2 years if you want to put sort of for you to maybe sort of stop the process. You can be given up to 2 years. Then after 2 years, the supervisor can publish your work, but following the proper submission guidelines and authorship guidelines of the university, right? So don't be surprised when you see your paper being published one day. The supervisor has the right to do that. And also, even the publications that you do, we are supposed to do those publications before we submit to the university, because when we submit to the university takes the copyright of that. It falls on the university of our thesis. They belong to the university. So even if you publish, they have a right to question you, why are you publishing from the thesis after they have accepted it. But the university doesn't do that, because we publish under the sort of that will be our affiliation is the University of Johannesburg. So that's why they don't worry much about that. But if you are going to publish, let's say you did your PhD here, then you go and publish at another university, the university is going to ask for that. It's going to ask for because it's the one with the copyright for your dissertation. So if you publish from the dissertation, then the university is your affiliation, UJ, whether you're at UJ or not. I think it's asking because
I think for that question, can I just jump in? It's me, Sajini.
Yeah.
I believe they're asking for a separate article over and above my dissertation that needs to be published, a theoretical article or some sort of additional article. So I don't know if it's something that we as students doing a minor dissertation needs to do, or is it just an additional thing that we can do if we want to?
For a minor dissertation, it's an additional thing that you can do, right? But for those who are doing full masters by research, they are required to at least submit a paper together with the all submissions. That can be in a publishable form. That can be submitted for publication. So which means the paper is not an entirely different thing. The paper is based on what you were doing. Based on your
yes.
on
So
your
the
dissertation
article
or on your mini dissertation, yeah.
Yeah, so for the article, they're saying that it needs to be like somehow relevant or aligning with the same or similar topic to what your dissertation is. But I'm just a bit concerned.
You can go on.
Oh, sorry, I'm just a bit concerned that if the article is going to hold me back in terms of submitting my dissertation. So I don't know, does the university want both my publication of my article as well as my dissertation, or are they only concerned on the dissertation, the minor dissertation?
No, they want the minor dissertation, but you can, in the event that they say, because like I've said, that departments also differ in terms of their requirements. They can put the requirement that maybe for this department, we also require that you publish from that. The aim is just to push research on the research side as well. But let me just, the tip that I can give you is that you can pull your paper from your research as the broader objective or the broader aim of the research that you are doing. Then you can write a paper on that using the same results that you obtained. It's just like you're taking your mini dissertation into a paper format. Right.
Okay.
So you're taking it in a paper format. Don't write another paper related to what you're doing. No, write about what you're doing. But usually you take the purpose, the main purpose of the dissertation, then you write. I did masters. It was by research, and we were not required to publish. It was not a requirement, but I did publish a paper because I sort of transformed my dissertation into a paper, right? I had a full dissertation. Then when I did masters as well, we were not required. We didn't have a requirement to publish as well. But I published, I think, about 3 papers out of that. Right. But it's
That's your own willing. Like you don't. It wasn't like a compulsory thing where they said they needed a publication acceptance approval from from the publishers, because that's what I was told, and I'm just concerned.
Okay, so that I think maybe you can have a conversation if it's your supervisor. Then you have a conversation with the supervisor. Then also visit the faculty office as well.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Because in terms of the guidelines, if you go to I think there's a part where let me just try to, if I can maybe go back a bit on my slides, because I remember putting something that comes from the police, from the higher degrees police, that address that issue. Okay, students are encouraged to publish articles based on their master's research before the research report, minor dissertation, or dissertation has formally been accepted, but must first obtain written permission from their supervisors, where supervisors are not co-authors on the submissions, right? So if the student does not publish, so they mention, so all of that you get it in section 15. Section 15. This is 15.10.8 that talks about intellectual property. But I wanted the one that talk about the requirements. Let me try to go back again. This is Viva. Responsible for 1,000 words. No research report, mine submitted. Scholarship submitted.
So I know it's so I'm a student. Can I jump in here quickly? Because
sure,
my supervisor told me I also have to do that. So there's on the RCD website there's the research consultants, and then I've got one of the guys there, and then he's helping me convert the masters into a journal. And then my supervisor said the conference is next year June, so I have to submit this year the masters, and then I must write the paper, and he will submit the journal at the conference next year June. So that's with regards to my stuff. That he did say it was a requirement for me. Just if I can come in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So like I've been saying, that sometimes it's just between you and your and maybe the requirement of the supervisor. It could also be the requirement of the department in terms of their research agenda and so on. But all the rules that do govern what we do, besides the issue that the faculties also have their own policies that if it's approved by the Senate, then they can also implement that. So which could be part of the things that you are talking about. But from all this, you don't have to write a separate to say it's a paper that is linked to the topic, but you can use it's the same mini dissertation that you have done, where you can turn that into a paper. Like you're saying, that is being assisted to try to see how you can turn the paper into the dissertation, mini dissertation into a paper.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you, everyone.
So you can access this, the policy as well, to read for yourself. I've included, this will be shared. So there's a link, this link that is there for the higher degree policy. It can give you further clarity on what is it that you are supposed to submit or not. But in recognition that the department and the faculty also have their own requirements. Lawrence, I think we've exhausted all the questions.
Okay, I'll step in. Dr. Gabriel Lawrence had to step out. Yes, I think we have exhausted all the questions. I don't see any more questions on the chats, and I do not see any hands that are raised. So, and we have gone over time now. So I think, okay, we have one last hand from Sophie. Please go ahead.
Sophie.
I just need advice or an input. Is it true that when the student publish, apparently there's a certain amount that goes to the institution?
When they publish?
Yes. Like you publish, after you publish, then the place that you actually publish, there's a certain amount that goes straight to the institution.
Okay, but the publication, what happens is that when you publish, usually depending on the journal that you are publishing on, okay, it's called a title. That name of the journal is called a title, right? So depending on that particular journal, let me refer to it as journal, on their whether they are publishing open access, or if one wants to access the paper, then they have they have to pay a subscription for accessing your paper. They will charge article processing charges, right? So if it's publishing open access, for then their article processing charges. If they are publishing for free, they normally limit your paper to subscribers of that particular journal, right? But the university usually cover the publication fee, right? But for every article or research output that is published in an accredited journal, according to the Department of Higher Education and Training list of accredited journals, that is how the university gets grants. It's linked to that. So every paper is true that there's a certain amount that will come for every paper, right? But usually for students, when we publish, we do not sort of get that. We do not sort of get it comes to the university. There's way in which it is distributed for the faculty and also by certain percentages, but that is the money that funds the universities in a way. The grants are linked to that. So for students, at my previous, what they do here at UJ, I don't know. But at my previous university, we had a fund that was a pooled fund for all money that come from the students, right? So it would go into a certain cost center for students. That is the money that we're using when we go for conferences and other things. I think they even assisted me to pay for editing of my thesis, right? Because I had published 1 or 2 papers and contributed to that pool. So here, usually the supervisor, if I'm publishing with the supervisor will get sort of a share of that. But it's money that is not for personal use. It's for research purposes. Right? So the supervisor can also not take it and say, it's going to my bank account. But it's used maybe to buy equipment for you. Maybe there's equipment that you need, or you want to go to a conference, or maybe for research purposes, actually. I don't know if you answered, Sophie, on that.
Yeah, you answered. So it is definitely true. So yeah, you answered. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So I also saw a hand from someone who wanted to contribute.
Yes. Yes, it was me. I wanted to contribute a bit on that, because I thought at the beginning you were responding not necessarily what she was asking, and she was asking whether there's money that goes to the university, and indeed you ended up responding. But I think from my own experience, sometimes I think, for us students, it looks like it's a bit unfair because we don't have a trust fund, right? That the money goes to. But depending on the relationship between the supervisor and the student, sometimes this unfairness can be sort of resolved in a way that you are always funded to attend conferences, right? But true, who has to submit the funding request? It's you for you to go to attend the conference, because the supervisor will not be there to say, I've submitted your paper. You have to submit your paper by yourself. The paper gets accepted, then you request the fund. And also, the supervisor, not only for us, for myself, there's all other pool of students that also rely on the same supervisor. So I think it depends on how you produce and how you decide to attend the conferences and so on. So that's the only way we can address this unfairness in brackets. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So like I've been saying, your supervisor, obviously something is received and an allocation of that goes somewhere, but you're depending on the setup of that, then the only way you can benefit from that usually is for research support on your side, right? I think that was the last question. And with that,
Yes.
where can we get the recording? Or missed some of the parts. Okay, the recording will be uploaded on our Moodle community. It will be uploaded after this session. By the end of today, it will be uploaded on the Moodle community. So you just go on past resources, past workshops for 2025. Then under the month of June of August, then you will see it there. Can we get this recording? Okay. Would also be ideal to have the session like this around 15 because most of the people are working. Okay, no, I will take that into consideration for our future planning. That is from Takal. Okay, so in our future planning, we will take that into consideration. I would like to just say thank you from my side for being an audience. I think we still have about 65 attendees who have continued to be with us throughout, even almost into another hour of just engaging, questions, sharing experiences, and some clarifications on certain issues. And I thank you so much for that. And go to your faculty as well. Read these resources, that I've shared with you, these policies, because these policies, they govern how your conduct here as a student and govern how, you should, your progression as a student from the time you apply until the time you leave the university. And they're not really very long. Some of them are like maybe 20, 30 pages, but you can read 30 pages. All this time you have been here at the university, you should have already read that and possibly finished so that you know what is it that is governing what you are doing. Also know what is it that your faculty offers and the conditions that they also place that sort of abide with the conditions that are also set by the Senate as dictated in the higher degrees policy, right? So thank you so much for taking your time, and I'm handing over to Ms. Kuketsopila to close this session for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gabriel, for your presentation and for responding to all the questions that were raised. Just want to remind the participants to please complete the feedback survey that is on the chat. And on the feedback survey, you can also suggest some of the topics that you would want us to cover, and we will do so. Thank you very much to everyone for joining us, even though we have gone over time, but thank you for staying with us in the session. And yeah, just suggest some of the topics that you want us to cover, and then we can accommodate you. And if there are no more questions or comments or suggestions, then we can close the session. Thank you so much. We will definitely share the recording and the presentation slides after the session. And you can have a wonderful day further. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.